You're listening to Bad Girlfriend Radio. I'm your host, Bree Schmidt. I'm a relationship coach and educator offering advice and insight that is no shame, no sugarcoat, and no BS. Today, I am focusing on relationship advice that you shouldn't follow. We'll get into 10 examples of bad relationship advice that you may have heard before and what to do instead. Let's get started. Okay, I lied. We can't get started yet because I have to interrupt to tell you that right now, for a limited time, you can get your first one-on-one coaching session with me for half off. Yes, 50% off. And not only that, but half of your payment will then go to a nonprofit called Futures Without Violence. They work to end domestic and sexual violence worldwide, and they help those, especially women and children, who have been affected by violence. I love what they're doing, and I wanted to find a way to help you grow and improve your relationships and have the life that you want while also helping other women at the same time. The coaching that I offer is personalized to you, what you need and what goals you have, whether that be creating healthy relationship habits, dealing with a breakup, or just learning to love being single. Wherever you're at, if you're getting stuck, I'm here to help you using cognitive behavioral coaching strategies to help you get back on track. And again, all of this in your first session is half off. So to sign up now for a one-on-one coaching call with me, go to breeschmidt.com/first session. That's breeschmidt.com/FIRSTSESSION. All right, now let's get on with today's topic. If you've listened to my recent episodes, you know what I'm about to say. It is cicada season in Japan, so if you hear some buzzing in the background, it is the cicadas being very loud outside. You know, I think truthfully, the windows next to my desk are just really thin, and thankfully I'll be moving soon, which will be my second move since I've started doing the podcast. And with each space, I have to figure out, like, where will my workspace be? Where will I record? So hopefully before summer is over, we'll be able to block out the cicada sounds, but who knows? Maybe not. They are very, very noisy. Anyway, let's get into today's episode. I'm talking about 10 examples of bad relationship advice, and these pieces of advice are things I've heard or read recently, and they are all from relationship experts. Some people in this field of relationship coaching or being a relationship expert, some people base their advice on science or astrology or old stereotypes or just their own experience. So just because someone is an expert doesn't necessarily mean that what they say is the only way or the right way. And today's episode is a perfect example of that, because I personally don't agree with any of the advice that we are going to talk about today. So let's get to our first example of bad relationship advice. Number 1, contact your ex to try to get back together if your sex life was good, because they may be your soulmate. So there are 2 parts to this that I think are problematic. Number 1, it says that you should contact your ex because they may have been your soulmate. There are no soulmates. There simply are no soulmates. I would say that truthfully, if you weren't with your current partner, if you are in a relationship, you would find someone else. I know it doesn't sound romantic, and it makes relationships maybe seem a little bit less special, but letting go of the pressure and expectations that go along with the idea of soulmates actually allows for healthier relationships. Then the second problematic part of this advice is that it suggests that if your sex life was good, then this is a very special quality in a relationship, and maybe you should just ignore the reason that you broke up and actually consider getting back together with an ex because you were so sexually compatible. You know, sex is a really important part of relationships, but you can teach almost anyone who will listen how to make you feel good in bed, and vice versa. I'm not saying that everyone has chemistry and sexual compatibility, but that isn't reason to get back together with an ex. You can have good sex again with someone different, trust me. And also, for some couples who have unhealthy relationships, Sex can sometimes be the only thing that keeps them together. But passion is not enough for a healthy relationship, period. All right, number 2 on our list of bad relationship advice. Women shouldn't say I love you first because it frightens men. This seems too obvious, right? Like for why it's bad relationship advice. But I found this on a very popular website telling women that it doesn't matter how modern or empowered they think that they are. They will sabotage their relationships if they tell men, I love you first. You know what also sabotages relationships though? Hiding your honest thoughts and feelings. Playing games, playing hard to get. Dating guys who get scared by women so easily. These things will all also sabotage your relationship. If you don't want a relationship controlled by outdated stereotypes and gendered expectations, then don't date someone who follows outdated stereotypes and gendered expectations. In other words, tell a guy how you feel, be honest, and hey, if they get scared off just by that, then they probably weren't right for you anyway. Number 3, wait 90 days to have sex. This seems to be a well-known piece of advice, to wait 90 days with a new partner or someone who you're dating before you have sex. And it is specifically for women who have sex with men. And this advice suggests that men will get bored before the 90 days are up if they're, basically an F-boy. If they're just trying to hook up with you, then they will get bored before the 90 days are up and they don't want to wait 90 days. So it's like a way to test if a guy is an F-boy or not, or if he's just using you for sex. So wait 90 days before having sex, and it's kind of like a test. Now, I would agree that taking your time to get to know someone is crucial. Don't rush things. But you get to decide when you're ready, not some arbitrary rule saying to wait 3 months. If 3 months sounds appropriate to you, then wait 3 months. If that sounds like a really long time, then just don't follow it. This has everything to do with your boundaries and what you're comfortable with. Next, number 4 actually puts a very high value on sex, almost kind of the opposite, or kind of contradicting the last one in a way. So this advice says that your relationship is failing if there's a lack of sex. And if you sleep in separate beds, then you are doomed. So there's 2 parts to this. If you're not having much sex, then your relationship is failing. And if you sleep in separate beds, also your relationship is failing and you're probably going to get divorced or break up. So if you're not having as much sex as you used to, or if you sleep in separate beds, then basically this advice says that you should be like packing your bags, signing the divorce papers. It is over. Very black and white, right? I think this kind of advice puts a lot of pressure on couples, especially couples who are going through personal changes or changes in lifestyle. Listen, if you're working more lately, or if you've had a baby lately, or some other change, even like a health issue, then your sex life might also change. That is okay. It doesn't mean that you're failing as a couple. And as for sleeping in separate beds, listen, I'll be honest, in my own relationship, I do very much prefer to sleep in the same bed and even go to bed at the same time. I don't like to have different sleep schedules or sleep apart from my partner, from my husband. That time where we're able to talk before we fall asleep or where we get to wake up next to each other, those moments are golden to me. But not everyone feels this way. Here in Japan, where I live, it's actually really common in Japanese culture for women to sleep with their babies or small children away from their husband in their own bed. And then maybe later, actually everyone might sleep in the same room together. Even the children will sleep with mom and dad when they're maybe like preschool age. So everyone's preferences and even culture around this rule offers so much variation. It is kind of silly to say that sleeping apart means that you're going to break up. Now, on the other hand, if you're not having sex or you're sleeping separately because of some conflict in the relationship, then, well, that's another story, right? Okay, number 5. If your ex hasn't blocked you on social media, then they want you back. If your ex has not blocked you on social media, they want you back. They want to get back together with you. This sort of advice drives me crazy. I can remember being in university going through a really bad breakup that left me feeling really confused. And I would have been so vulnerable to this kind of advice. Listen, if you broke up, treat it like a breakup. Focus on healing, not on getting them back. They may not have blocked you online. They may not hate you. They may even be open to being friends again someday or having some contact. But none of this actually means that they want a committed relationship with you again. I'm interrupting here to make sure that you've already signed up for freebies, including free worksheets, quizzes, and other online resources, plus updates and future discounts on coaching and more. If you haven't already signed up, make sure to go to brieschmidt.com/sign up and you'll get instant access to the full digital resource library. Here you can take quizzes like what's your attachment style or how assertive are you? Or you can download guides and worksheets like the guide to navigating your next big relationship fight, a worksheet to help you plan your future, and more, and it's all free. So again, make sure to sign up at brieschmidt.com/sign up. Now let's get back to today's topic. Number 6 on our list of bad relationship advice, this one is a little bit tricky. Always put yourself first. Always put yourself first. I see this kind of advice on social media a lot. And even I talk a lot about checking in with yourself, setting boundaries, not forcing yourself to do anything that you don't want to do. But the truth is, if you want a relationship, you have to be okay with that commitment and making sacrifices sometimes. I don't mean sacrificing your self-respect or your values, but if you always put yourself first, well, to be honest, it's a little bit selfish, isn't it? I got into this topic of being selfish or selfless a lot more back in episode 34. But in short, be generous to others, but with limits. All right? Number seven on our list of bad relationship advice, never ignore someone who cares for you and misses you. Never ignore someone who cares for you and misses you. Well, quite frankly, their feelings about you don't dictate everything. See, going back to the last advice about putting yourself first, it's a balance, right? Consider your own needs and values, but also think of others. But it's a balance. Just because someone cares about you or says that they miss you does not mean that you are obligated to do anything. If they make you feel uncomfortable, ignore them. If they hurt you and you don't want to give them a second chance, let them go. You are not obligated to be polite to people if you don't want to. It's not about wasting your energy being mean or seeking revenge, though, either. Basically, you don't have to make space in your life for people who you don't want there. Now, I'll be fair and say that I think that this piece of advice is trying to say don't take people for granted. I think that that is what the advice is trying to get at. Don't take people for granted, which, yes, that is a very good reminder. Don't take people for granted. Be grateful for the good people in your life. But the wording, never ignore someone who cares for you and misses you, it can be very misleading. Women don't need to be made to feel guilty for letting people go or not responding to certain people who they don't want in their life. And men, too. All right, number 8. Be with someone who makes you happy. This advice is well-intentioned, but I want to change this advice a little bit to something a bit healthier and more rational. Rather than be with someone who makes you happy, let's change it to be with someone who allows you to grow. You might not always feel happy, and that's okay. I think I've said before on this podcast in another episode that the whole good vibes only idea can actually be a bit damaging because it puts pressure on us to always be happy. I think that what is meaningful in life isn't really based on how happy it made you So a meaningful relationship and a healthy, functioning relationship might actually be really hard sometimes. It might challenge you. But if you're growing through that and your partner is encouraging that growth, and if they're growing as well, that is much more valuable than just feeling positive emotions. And emotions come and go. So it's not realistic to expect a relationship to always be in a state of happiness or positive emotion. All right, next piece of bad advice, number 9. If you even consider breaking up, you should. I've heard this so much. If you are thinking of breaking up with your partner, then obviously you were already one foot out the door and it's not working out. So just break up and get it over with. I think that this can be true sometimes, but for those who struggle with an insecure attachment, you may have thoughts of breaking up, but this thought could be related to a fear that you're holding. So for example, if you're anxiously attached, then you may convince yourself that your partner is just going to leave you anyway. So maybe you should just break up with them first, right? If you have an anxious attachment style, this kind of thought is really common. Or if you're avoidant, then you may tell yourself that the relationship is just getting too claustrophobic, there's too much pressure, it's too demanding, and you should just break up before the relationship gets any worse. So just because you consider breaking up with someone doesn't always mean that you should, but it does mean that there are some fearful or distorted thoughts happening that could be negatively impacting the relationship. So I would focus more on the thoughts behind that consideration to break up, rather than looking at it like, if you consider to break up, then obviously you should just break up. Again, it's kind of, some of this advice can be pretty black and white, and I think there's a lot of gray area there. All right, finally, number 10. You shouldn't need anything from anyone. You shouldn't need anything from anyone, and you shouldn't expect anything from anyone. I hear this all the time, and I will time and time again proudly refute this relationship advice. It is okay to have needs. It is okay to have standards. It is okay to decide that you want a relationship with quality time, or where you can be honest about your childhood, or where you can feel appreciated, or whatever it may be that you need. It is okay. It is okay to have those needs and standards for your relationship. It's okay to need connection, right? That's huge. We are human beings. We need to connect. You don't need to be detached from everyone. You don't need to be independent all the time. And by the way, I'm not saying to be dependent on them, but interdependence is a perfectly healthy option where you and your partner are both invested in the relationship as well as yourselves. I love this topic so much, and I made episode 33 all about having needs and being needy. So if you haven't listened already, feel free to go back to that episode. And that wraps up 10 examples of bad relationship advice that you shouldn't follow. What did you think? Was anything confusing, or do you disagree? Was there some advice that you've heard before a lot, or some advice that you'd actually never heard before? As always, you can contact me on Instagram. I am at Bree_Schmidt, or you can email me at contact@breeschmidt.com. And you can find these links and others mentioned in today's episode over in the show description. All right, thanks for listening. As always, bad girlfriend. Until next time.